Good morning, Tina Mitchell here, your local mortgage expert and your host of Coffee with a Superstar. My show is with real estate agents for real estate agents. I interview the best of the best in the industry so you can hear what they're doing and how they're doing it. Each week I travel to my superstar's office to invite you behind the scenes of their business. And this week I have Phil Rodocker with John L in Renton.
Thank you.
Phil, thank you so much for joining us for the show today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, a little bit about Phil. Phil and his team know buying and selling a home is one of the biggest financial transactions that you'll ever make. In addition to helping individuals and families buy and sell real estate, the Rodocker Group also serves developers and comprehensive sales and marketing expertise. With more than 1,200, that's why he's our superstar this morning, real estate transactions completed, Philip and his team have a proven track record of delivering quality results. They have successfully sold homes through many real estate market cycles and have accumulated negotiation expertise from each transaction, which leverage to get you the very best deal on your terms. So I'm very excited. I've known Phil for years and kind of more of a passing. We haven't worked together, but I've always respected the level of success that you've had in your business, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to be able to sit down and share your wealth of expertise with our listeners today. So Phil, I'd like to start out with asking, what do you credit your success to?
Tenacity, right? I've been doing this now for 30 years.
Yeah.
So 3 decades in, you see a lot. And you have a following after time, right?
Yes.
It just takes time to build that, right? And I look back on real estate, when I started, there were no cell phones, we used to run from telephone booth to call our clients back.
That
Always
is
had a quarter in our
crazy.
pocket so we could follow up on the calls.
Uh-huh.
The first cell phone I had was one that was in a pouch that went in my car, and then it went to the brick phone and so on, and then to today. So it's speed of information too, right? And technology changing. The more we lean into the technical side of this world, and the more we lean into what's important to our clients, the more clients we're going to have to service, and we can service them better.
Yeah.
And so just staying on top of what's relevant, I guess.
Well, and I think that's really important, especially in the real estate space, because technology is such a big part of the business. And for those of you agents that are listening today that have been in the industry for a long time, that change is really hard for some people. It's critically important to maintain the level of success that, like you've had, Phil, in your career, to adapt and be excited to move forward with the ever-changing industry. Is that correct?
Yeah, but you have to be forward-thinking all the time in this business. If you start to relax a little bit, real estate, the world is not static. It's moving forward or backwards all the time. And you have to lean into the forward movement of it, or you fall backwards. It's just how it works. So you have to constantly learning, constantly growing, always be going to classes, always training yourself, always looking for what's new, what's best, always reaching out to people, not feel like you're on the very top. There's always somebody who's going to be a little bit better, it's going to have something a little bit newer, that if you can work with that, you're going to be just a little bit sharper, right? And it's always about the race, right? You got all these people racing, and if you look at the very, end of the race, there's always 1 or 2 people, and it's a 1 second difference in who wins and who comes in second, right? 1 second difference. And so the more we go out and learn, train, sharpen our axe, the more we're going to be that extra 1 second person. And that's what we work towards.
That's a very good point, Phil. And also, I would imagine, being in the industry as long as you have, I've been in the industry for over 2 decades, so not quite as long as you have, but I know it's been a little while. It'll be at 25 years here next year.
Wow,
so
silver anniversary.
It's been forever, exactly.
Silver anniversary.
Exactly. But, and I know it's true for myself, and it has to be for you as well. I mean, you have to be passionate about what you're doing and love what you're doing in order to sustain in the industry and sustain the success that you've had, correct?
Sure. Yeah, it's got to be somewhat natural. It's got to be instinctive to a degree.
Yes.
Right? That's just, I don't see rocket scientists doing this kind of work. It's just, you've got to have a personality for it. It's got to be like a calling to begin with, and it was for me.
Yeah.
I started right out of college. I was 22, so I'm 52, so 30 years, 22. So I started fairly young.
Oh, you're younger than you are. We're really close in age.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go. Got a baby in the house here. You're young. So,
12 months.
12 months. 12 months. But who's counting, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you started when you were young, and how did you get into the industry?
It was actually by accident. I worked for Boeing. I got out of school and I worked at Boeing, and a friend of mine from school, I was in what's called diversified occupation classes, or DECA classes, and he was in the class with me, and he started up this log home company, and he was down looking for surplus furniture for his office and saw me. I was down on the flight line, and he said something to me that was just, it just totally changed me. I was a young guy, been through working down here, had a nice job, nice conservative job. My parents worked for Boeing, my uncle worked for Boeing, my cousins worked, everybody worked for Boeing back in the 70s and the 80s. That's all we had around here. I thought that was a natural course to go, work for Boeing, right? And so he was down there looking for surplus stuff, and I was walking on the flight line. I had my flight jacket on, my line jacket actually is what they called them. And he said to me, I'm looking for surplus, and I said, hey, his name was Scott. And he goes, you know what? He goes, why don't you come work for me? And I said, I got a job. I work for Boeing. And I said, they're a big company, blah, blah. And he goes, hey, I got to tell you this. And this is what changed my life. He goes, every big company started as a small company. Yeah. And he goes, I'm a small company. He goes, I can offer you $1 more an hour. And he says, if you leave these guys on good graces, they'll always take you back, but you need to know this. And he looked me right in the face and said this. He goes, when you're looking for security, it's here. It's between your ears. Yeah. The security in your life is going to be built by you, not by somebody else. And he goes, I'll do the best I can. He said, but the more you're independent, the more secure you are with yourself, the more that's going to resonate, the more you're going to do. And I thought that was so important. And I thought about that for a long time, about where is security? Yes. What creates security? What creates this thing we call security in our life? I mean, everybody's got a certain level of insecurity. And then I looked at Boeing and I said, back in the 70s and 80s, they were laying people off all the time. Yes. So look, that's not even secure, because they could turn around and say, hey, you're laid off, you don't have the retention, you're gone. So I mean, maybe that. So I said, you know what? I'll give you a shot, Scott. Yeah. And then so we started building log homes. And I went out, sold log homes all over the place, and it was a good deal, and radio and all this stuff. And then the Japanese came over, and this was back in 1989, 88, 89 came over, and they saw what we were building, and they gave him a 2-year contract to build log homes in Japan. Wow. And so they went to Japan for 2 years. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go live in Japan. I wasn't married. I was a bachelor guy back then. But I didn't want to go. I want to be here. I want to do my thing here. I family here. Because you never know what's going on in the world. I didn't want to spend two. They went over. They did it. They came back. But in that time, I was now out of a job. Because they said, we're packing up and going to Japan. So then I met the owner of this company. His name's Saul Zaradol. Yeah. And when I met the guy, I fell in love with him. And I have been working out of the same office. Never changed offices. Always worked for the same management. Yeah. And always been right here in this company. That's crazy. 30 years. Yeah, that's a great thing, because it's hard to say that you've been at the same company in the same office working for the same ownership for 30 years. 30 years. Yeah, that is awesome. So Phil, of course you've had challenges over your career, and I would love for you to share with our audience today, what is the biggest challenge that you've had in the real estate business, and what did you do to overcome that? Well, challenges. Okay, so I'm a little different. I don't look at things as challenges. I don't either. I look at them as opportunities. Yes. So my mind, when you say challenges, I have to think hard. So what opportunities and obstacles have you faced, and how did that better you, and how did you overcome it? So I've been through 4 economic cycles in real estate, right? And anybody that's been here for a long time has been through them. The first one was when Boeing was laying people off, and they were moving everybody up to Everett. They didn't have the 737 out yet, and they were down here in Renton, and that's when they sold. The landing used to be Boeing's parking lot. Wow, yeah. And it was deserted. Everybody was going to Everett. So that was our first turn. That was back in 1991, 92, that happened. So it was a struggle to try to sell real estate. Then we had the .com boom when Windows 95 came out. That's when Microsoft got big, went up, and then we had the boom crash. Yes. Right? So that was the second cycle we went through when everything came down. Then we had I think it was there was another little blip that we had in between with the economy, and then we had the mortgage crisis. Yes. Right? And that was the big one, because it hit us. It wasn't on the airline industry, but it was directly smack right on us. Yes. And so what I learned back then is that if we focus on the scarcity of the market, what's scarce in the market, we're always going to be in demand. Yeah. So what do you say? What is scarcity? What would be scarcity today? Listings. Listings are scarce, right? So the more you lean into listings, the more you're going to be in demand, because you're working the scarcity. There was a time back when the market was crashing where we had so much inventory because the buyers weren't coming out. We literally had to carry 50 properties to sell one, because the market, if you want to sell 5 houses a month, the market was turning at 10%. You had to have 50 to sell one.
Yes.
every single month, right? Well, today it's not that way. It's 1-to-1 or 1.5 to 1. Okay, so knowing your numbers is important.
Yes.
Right.
And again, being able to adjust with the market and change. I mean, people that survived in that market, they were working with a lot of the short sales and learning things that they hadn't learned before to survive in the market, and not only to survive, but to be able to thrive in that market.
Yeah, and it gets back to the very first thing I said is relevancy. So when market changes, there's something that's going to create relevancy, right? So in the business, you can be a generalist or a specialist.
Yes.
Okay. That's the difference in real estate. You can be a generalist or you can be a specialist. Just like any career, we're not in a job, we're in a career. So if you start thinking about industries that are careers, attorneys they have careers. They have a book of business. Doctors have a career. Okay. There's certain fields out there that are career based, and there's other ones that are job based where you get a check every month. We don't get a check every week or every month. We have to build that. We have to build that base. Same with the doctors and the attorneys. Now you can be a general practice doctor. You can be an MD. How do they get paid?
Yeah.
They get paid through the insurance companies. They get beat up. They don't make very much, and they're really generally not the happiest people when you see them. Then you have your specialists, right? Brain surgeons, heart surgeons.
Yes.
Specialties. How do they get paid? It's no different in real estate. If you can find something that you're passionate about in this business and become a specialist in that area,
and where there's a scarcity.
So when I look at my business over 30 years, when I did this, I sat down and I took a piece of paper and I wrote down on one side everything you can do to sell real estate and the words I liked, just the way they sounded. Because I said, if I'm going to be in this long term, I better start liking this.
Yes.
So I wanted to work with things I like. So I wrote down like for sale by owner, cancels, expires, open houses, all these things. And then anything I liked that made it sound like it would be fun to do, I moved over to this side of the column. And the first year I tried all that. And then I whittled it down to what could I be a specialist at?
Yeah.
What could I specialize in? And so I picked the field of for sale by owners.
Okay.
And I said, okay, I can generalize in everything else, but I'm going to specialize right here.
Yes.
And I learned everything I needed to learn about this. I talked to everybody about this. I went to all the seminars, everything about just this one topic. I was only listening for this one key.
Yeah.
How to be better at that.
And I love that. If you listen to Phil in the way that he describes this, it's actually brilliant because you need to have a business plan, you need to have a goal, decide what how much you want to make and break it down to how many deals that you need to do, and you have to have a marketing plan. But Phil just took that so much deeper. There are so many different avenues, and I think that's where it can get challenging in the real estate space and any other space. There's so many different options that you can do to be successful. But break it down to every possible thing, every market, every plan that you can have, marketing idea, and then shift over to the side that it connects with you, because you know what you know when you say for sale by owner, if you say expires or whatever that is, whether it makes you feel good or you get kind of scrunched up about it, thinking about it. So move the ones over and then narrow it down to one you really want to focus on. And I think that's key in having one target, one focus, and then you can add to that and expand. Once you nail one, you can kind of bring in another, and again, always watching where the market needs you, right?
But in 30 years, I've taken that one and I've shifted the one, but it's always been the one. So for sale by owners for 7 years.
Yeah.
Then the market changed and we needed buyers, so I started doing buyer classes. And the other thing I needed to do was build my database.
Of course.
So I was thinking, okay, I've got to have a long-term database. So I started doing classes, first-time home buyers, to build that first-time home buyer base in my database. Once I did that, it's called cradle to grave. If you can have somebody from the very beginning and stay with them throughout their whole life, all the way to the end, then they're going to continue to work with you because you give them exceptional service. They don't know anybody else. They're not looking for anybody else. You haven't given them a reason. If you stay in touch with them weekly, or you send out newsletters, or you put on events. I put out an event for baseball every year, the last game of the year. I rent out a whole section of the Mariners, win, lose, or draw. We're always there. It's always the last Sunday. It's a kids' night, and so they bring their kids. We have batting cages. We do all kinds. Just staying connected with your base. Once you build it is important. So I did the for sale by owners, and then when that changed, for sale by owners, I went to the first-time home buyers, and then the market crashed, right? We talked about that crash. So then what happened is I changed my specialty to what? Short sale negotiations. So I went and I got trained through the 5-star, through the asset managers. And I got a tour of the asset companies down in Orange, California. I worked with Condor Capital, which is one of the biggest block buyers out there, because I put my focus on that one thing. And a door started opening, right? The door started opening. And then that started changing, and then I moved into working one thing very effectively the last 10 years, investors. because we have all this distressed property that needs to be refurbed. So the fix and flip became very popular.
Yes.
Right? And so now I've got 26 to, I think I've probably got about 30 now, flip investors.
Okay.
And now I have a base of 30 people
Yeah.
that I manage and I market to. I help them find deals in the marketplace, and I get the listings on the back. And so if you say, okay, if I got, do math, if I got 30 people that I'm focused on, just that 30 people, helping them find properties, and they do 4 houses a year, how many listings is that? 120
Yep.
from 30 people.
Yes.
Okay? So that's good math.
Yeah.
Okay? So just figuring out how you can get more out of the people that you're working with right now.
Yeah.
And then it's just, you don't worry about everything. I just don't worry about everything. I don't go out and door knock. I'm
So
not cold calling.
build those people, build the sphere, stay in contact, do things to keep connected with them, shift with the market and find out where the scarcity is in the market and be willing to move forward. And to do that, you have to let go of something that's worked so well for so long to start into something new that you may not have the time
but
to
you have to have foresight. You have to have foresight. Like right now, the shift that's going on today that I can see is that the investment market is slowing down. Right? Because the equities are coming back.
Yeah.
People have equity in their house. They don't need to foreclose. They can actually sell.
Where's your next shift going to be?
Deep into the relationships that I've built over 30 years.
Okay.
And really be conscientious about the people that have worked with me.
Yeah.
And we've bought and sold with me, and they believe in my brand, and they're a fan.
Yeah.
Right? And we're doing a lot of that right now, and we're getting a lot of traction there. That's working out really well.
That is great. So for a marketing tip, Phil, what would be a great marketing tip that you can share with the agents that are listening to the show this morning?
Find your specialty.
Yeah.
What you're good at, and dwell into it. Get deep about it and learn everything you can about it, and be the best.
Yeah.
Be the best at whatever that one thing is.
So invest in yourself, invest financially so that you're going to people that are doing what you're doing.
Just have laser focus. Just have laser focus on one thing. Find out one thing in this business that really excites you, and be the best at that. You know, Abraham Lincoln said something, and I've got this quote on my wall in the office. When people walk in, it says, "Whatever you are, be a good one."
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln said that. 160 years ago, he said, "Be a good one," and he meant not a good 6, not a good 8. Don't try to do everything. Try to do the one thing you can to be the best. Quote from Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, and I think a lot in the real estate space you hear this, well, I'm afraid to put myself out there in the market as I work with investors, or I'm the expert on for sale, or whatever that is. So how would you address that when you hear an agent say that? Because what if people don't want to work with me thinking I just focus on investors?
You can say, okay, well, I'm afraid to have to ride public transportation. I'm afraid of losing my house. I'm afraid of lots of other things that propel me to do this, right? So you have to break through your fear and know that the backside of it isn't pretty.
Yes.
Right? And you want to be the best you can be in the marketplace because your family succeeds, you succeed. You know, it's all about contribution. Our life on this planet is all about how we can contribute, right? So the contribution that I recently wanted to make is I wanted both of my kids to go to college debt-free. No debt. Don't carry any debt. Debt is a killer. And so I was able to have both my kids graduate from college debt-free.
Wow.
Paid all of it. And I say, okay, well, money. But it's not that. It's about helping them understand and appreciate, because it's not about what I say, it's about what I do, right? Yeah. Kids learn from what you do, not what you say.
Lead with example.
And so now my daughter, she's on our team. She works with us because she's so grateful for the life that I was able to give her, that she wants that for her family. Yeah. And it's just passing that on.
Yes.
Right. And
you're a big Dave Ramsey fan, and you work through the platform with him for real estate, correct?
Yeah, I've been with him now for 8 years.
Yeah.
I've been back to Nashville twice, back to Brentwood, back to Financial Peace University and Financial Peace Headquarters in Martha's Place, and I've done that. And he's a good guy, and I've met Dave, and he's got good, solid foundation and good referrals. He sends referrals our way, so he's been good for us.
That's awesome. So I can probably guess what you're going to say, but I'd love to hear it from you. And next step, if a real estate agent's listening to the show today, whether they're a new agent or they're established agent, because there's established agents that have been in the industry as long as you have and still haven't reached that level of success and are still challenging with trying to figure out how to make it work for them, what would be your call to action?
Saul said something to me one time that really, you got to get these one little nuggets. You're going to get them in certain spots, and things have to connect with you, right? And when things start connecting, it's to that. But I mean, you really don't. You hear it once, but if it really makes sense to you, it resonates. The person that's out there that's starting out new, the thing that I would say that would be very, very impactful for their success is to find a voice that resonates with you in the speaker platform, right? In the I guess the training platform. Okay. So get a mentor, somebody that you really, everything they say just clicks with you. It just makes sense. I went through this whole process, and back in the day they had, Tony Robbins was really big, and then they had like Mike Ferry was really big, and Brian Tracy, and they had Jim Rohn, and Floyd Wickman, and Joe Stump, all these names of people that have since gone now, right? And we had a really good base of people that we could go with, and I went with a guy named Floyd Wickman. I really liked Floyd. So if you can find any of his old stuff, he was a foundational based person. He started the Combined Real Estate Association of Michigan, or the Combined Real Estate Professionals of Michigan, something like that. And then he had Daniel Kennedy, he had Mike Ferry, he was in it, and there was another guy that was into psychology that was in it. And then they all kind of broke off and started doing their own training. But their stuff is really sound. The other one that was really, really good back in the day was Napoleon Hill. Yes. Okay. If you were to say right out of the gate, what would you do? I would highly suggest reading the book Napoleon Hill, and read it like a workbook. I've read it probably 10 times. Okay?
Victoria will post this on our Facebook Live, so you guys will have it.
Yeah, so Napoleon Hill would be the first guy that I'd get. Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. Now he's got multiple books, but the two that are the biggest, he's got Think and Grow Rich, and he's got The Laws of Success. Now The Laws of Success is actually the book that he was actually writing back during the Depression. And it was to give hope to the common man that was depressed, that didn't have anything.
Yes.
And that's a book that's like that thick, okay? And it's got great quotes, it's got great stuff in it. But the book Think and Grow Rich was written for himself as a manuscript to himself to keep himself motivated. And he took the very best of what was ever in The Laws of Success and condensed in that one book of all the people that he studied back in I think it was 32 or 33, somewhere in that area, just before World War II. He did this book, and it is the foundational model that every motivational speaker works off of. So that would be probably what I would do if I was just starting out, is get that book, find a voice that makes sense to you, and listen to them and follow them. Yeah. Whoever that is today.
And again, that's, focusing on the one thing, find, just like Phil saying, that one speaker, that one person that connects with you. And there's so much opportunity, especially as a real estate agent, and all the time that you're driving, and with podcast and Audible and all of those things to make it really easy for you to get educated, inspired, and motivated by your drive. That's my favorite time, is in my car, because it's the one time that I'm forced. I don't have anything else to do but focus on my own thoughts. And so if you can have those thoughts directed into something that you're listening to. Another suggestion on that as well is really take your time to go through that book or that podcast that you're doing, or the Audible, so that you can really take a break and sink in the information that you've listened to and put some of that into practice. Because I know a lot of people read through a book, if they make it through it, because it's a small statistic that people do, but they read through it and they don't do anything with it. Whereas if you can read a section and really implement what you've learned and go back and read another section, you really can master and have success from that.
Audible's been very good for me.
Love Audible. And you can make notes and break it where you really thought it was great. While you're driving, you can make notes.
There's a book right now, if you guys got 1 second, I will tell you the book that I really, really liked, that worked for me. Give this thing a second to charge itself here. Never Split the Difference. Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss. Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss. You say, what was good about that book? This guy was he worked for the FBI, and he was a trained hostage negotiator. And he wrote a book about how he was trained in the FBI to do hostage negotiation. And he said in the world of hostage negotiation, you can't split the difference with anybody, because what are you going to get? One live body, one dead body? Everybody had to come out whole, and he had to figure out a way to get whoever it was, the criminal or the robber or the bank robber, whoever it is, to see it from his point of view and to allow everybody to come out safely. And what they trained him in the FBI works very well in real estate when people start saying, start arguing with you about your commission or start arguing with you about how long you're going to be on the market. There's ways to do things to speed this process up and not get challenged by all the objections that come your way. So I would suggest today, never split the difference.
There you go. And I always say that if you're not getting the results that you want, it's always how you're communicating your message. So you really need to take a step back, work on your dialogue, your scripting, and get confident in that message that you're delivering so you can get the results that you want. Obviously, Phil leads from an expertise and from a position versus an advice versus an ask. There's sometimes we need to ask questions, but majority of the time we need to lead by our expertise, and a client can either make a decision to follow what our advice is, or they're not the right client, because we want to be successful through the process, correct?
Yeah, you're not going to work with everybody because it's a personality. Sometimes it's just a personality contest.
Yes.
And sometimes you just don't win the personality contest. I don't win them all. It's just going up to bat. They say Ichiro, right? If you look at his statistics, he was like a 3-1 batter. That means out of 10 balls coming at him, he only hit 3, and he was one of the best players on the field. But he missed 70% of the time.
Yeah.
But he didn't give up. He practiced, he trained, he practiced.
He learned through that process.
They were saying he was at one hotel. They were at one hotel. The baseball players were at one hotel, and the cops got called because there was a prowler out in the parking lot, prowling the cars. And so the hotel called because the baseball players were there. When they got there, it was Ichiro doing sprints out in the parking lot in the middle of the night to get the fastest first base.
Yeah,
right.
wow.
So he's out in the middle of the night when everybody else is in bed, and he's doing wind sprints behind the parking lot, and they thought it was a prowler.
Yeah.
And it was Ichiro. So I mean, there's things you have to know that they're constantly practicing even when you don't see them.
Exactly. Yeah, love that. Phil, thank you so much for being here this morning and sharing your expertise with our listeners and providing some education, motivation, and inspiration today.
Yeah. Hope it was good.
And thank you to you for being here and watching Coffee with a Superstar. We'll be here next week, different location, but with a great agent to provide some great information. And I wish everybody all the best today and lots of success. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys.